Welcome back to the High School Football Frenzy, folks. I am Andrew Callista. It is week four of the high school football season as I bring in our Fox 43 high school football web extraordinaire, Keith Schweiger. Keith, I say week four because everybody seems to be confused. Week three, week four. We don't do that week zero stuff here. When you play a game, that is week one. It's your first game, and we got a good high school football frenzy game of the week. This week, we're going to the LL, two rivals, Lancaster Catholic and Columbia, also our high school sports live game.
Yeah, this is one of the best rivalries in the league, no matter the sport. Lancaster Catholic and Columbia, there is no love lost between these programs, and especially when it comes in a big game like this, Section 5 opener for both teams. Both teams want to get that conference portion of their schedule off to a good start, so it should be a really, really good matchup. Lancaster Catholic, of course, coming in, they've won 3 games in a row. They knocked off York Catholic, DeLone Catholic, and Octorara last week. Columbia is coming off their first loss of the season. They lost to Elko 21-12 last week. Down 21-0 early. They battled back to make it close. Couldn't get over the hump in the end, so they're going to be looking to right the ship themselves this week.
Yeah, Elko, definitely no slouch right there. A bigger school, and they got some good athletes up there. So that actually is a very good game for Columbia if you're looking going forward to the rest of the season. For our other games to watch, there are a litany of great games throughout the entire area this week. We're going to pick 4 others. Let's keep it in the LL Section 5. Annville-Cleona hosting Hamburg. Hamburg coming out of Berks County. They've built their program up, and they are one of the better programs in Berks County right now.
Yeah, it's been quite a rise for Hamburg because it doesn't feel like it was real long ago where they were one of the biggest struggling programs in Berks County. Now here they are coming into the LL League as part of this Berks County invasion. They're other than Lancaster Catholic, they are the only other undefeated team in the section right now. 3-0 in the season. They've got a lot of good weapons, a really good defense, and a strong offense. Their defense is allowing just 250 yards a game. That's the lowest number in the league. And their offense has scored a league high 177 points. So they are going to be a challenge for Annville-Cleona to stop it. Annville-Cleona is no slouch either. This should be a good matchup.
Yeah, Coach Gingrich, the offense that he's run makes his team available to grab a W every single week because it is just tough to stop. Doesn't matter what level of football you're playing. And you said Berks County invasion. I love the term. Lantern Flies, Berks County football team. It all came from them. At least one we like to see, and those are the Berks County football teams.
Well, it's like the NWO coming back into the World Championship Wrestling a couple of years ago. It's the Berks County invasion. And before we move on, I'd just like to point out for Annville-Cleona, player to watch, Phoenix Music, their running back. That's got to be the best name in the Lancaster-Lebanon League right now. I just love it. So shout out to Phoenix.
Absolutely. That name is going to go down in the history books right there, just on the name alone. Moving on, we're going to move over to the Mid-Penn. East Pennsboro, I saw them in action last week. They are 3-0. They have a defense. Keith's going to tell us a little bit more about them. They are traveling to Gettysburg. This is a big matchup for them, and I got to tell you, the Panthers are playing really, really well. Yeah,
they've won 3 in a row, as you pointed out. They knocked off Milton Hershey 17-8 last week, and that's pretty much how they've been doing it. They have a stifling defense. They do enough offensively to get the job done. Keith Oakes, their quarterback, he had a pair of touchdowns last week, but then he also led the defensive effort. He had 15 tackles, a sack, and an interception all in one game last week. So he does a little bit of everything for them. Obviously a player you're going to have to account for if you're Gettysburg. And I know we've talked about Gettysburg quite a bit this year. They're back in the Mid-Penn after 8 years in the York Adams League. They rebounded. They lost to New Oxford in week 2. They bounced back last week, 35-20 over Boiling Springs. Player to watch for them, Jaden Johnson. He had a big game last week, 137 rushing yards and a touchdown. So should be a good matchup, as you pointed out. Now we're into the Mid-Penn portion of the schedule for both these teams. And again, they want to get off to a good start as they get into section play. And dare I say it, as we go into the second half of the season, because we're almost halfway through.
By the way, if you wanted to check out some of that East Pennsboro game, go over to fox43.com. You'll see Keith Oakes. Great name, by the way.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a little partial on that one. You'll see his interception. You'll see one of his touchdown runs. You'll see one of his sacks where he gets up, gives the finger wave and everything. And I got to tell you, Coach Denniston, they did an onside kick, a squib kick. He comes running out. I'm just saying I was in the huddle. Probably shouldn't have been there. Players were like, Coach, look behind you. And he was like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're like, aim for this guy. And the kicker goes, no, Coach, he's too far away. says the number, kicks it right off them in the front row. They recover the kick. Milton Hershey was never able to recover. So a great moment, great coach interaction right there. I love to see that. We're going to go up to the Commonwealth, the largest division in the Mid-Penn. CD East going to undefeated Cumberland Valley. CD East offense looked explosive last week against Northeastern. Those highlights also available on fox43.com. Josh Oswalt, he's got Cumberland Valley and the Eagles flying high after that transition from the wing T offense.
Yeah, and again, both teams really off to good starts here. Central Dauphin East, no one seems to have informed them that you're supposed to struggle for a little bit when you rebuild your entire program, because they lost a ton of players, really good key players to graduation in the offseason. So they're coming back, picking up right where they left off. They look dangerous, powerful. They lost to Cedar Crest in week 2. There's no shame in that, certainly. Bounced back last week with a 34-7 victory over Northeastern. And again, like I said, cleaned out by graduation, so a lot of new faces there, a lot of new players to contend with for Cumberland Valley. And like you said, Cumberland Valley, they moved into a new offense. They've got a good tandem. Quarterback Isaac Sines and Bryce Starretts, the quarterback and running back, they have 486 rushing yards combined, 13 touchdowns in their first 3 games. 10 of those are Sines. So he's off to a great start. Going to have to be somebody that they focus heavy on if you're CD East.
Yeah, when I saw CD East, Jackson Copney talk about that. He did the Micah Parsons impersonation with the pick 6 for the return, and then he threw a couple of dime passes. One of them was caught out of bounds, but it was a great catch by his receiver. Next one right in stride, right on the goal line. So he could definitely throw the deep ball very well. We'll call him Jeff Blake if we're going to make a comparison right here for the old timer for me, because Jeff Blake in the NFL. All right, one more game to get to. Cross conference rivalry: York Adams and the Lank Leb. Red Lion, they've seemed to have found their footing after a couple of down years for their standards. They are traveling to Elizabethtown, who got a big win last week over Lower Dauphin to move to 3-0 at Hershey Park Stadium. That was our high school sports live game of the week last week, and also our frenzy game of the week. So Red Lion at E-Town.
Yeah, and it's an extra non-conference game for both of these programs because they're in divisions with odd numbers of schools. So E-Town knew coming in they were going to have to pick up that 4th non-league game at some point in the season. Everybody else in their section is going to have to do the same thing eventually. So yeah, should be a good matchup. As we point out, Elizabethtown is off to the 3-0 start. Red Lion, they lost their first game of the season last week, 42-35 to Reading. Nothing wrong with that. Reading is a big program. I know they've struggled in Berks County for a while, but they have a huge roster, much bigger than Red Lions. So no shame in that. And it was one of those quirky, kind of odd sort of shootout kind of games. So you never know what's going to happen in a situation like that. They do have impressive wins over Ephrata and West York. So they're off to a pretty good start. LaDainian Strasbow. Speaking of great names, I don't know if he's named after LaDainian Tomlinson, but he is a running back, much like LT was. So he's one of the big weapons on offense. Red Line also runs a platoon of quarterbacks. They have 2 guys moving in and out of there, both of whom are effective, both on the ground and in the air. So they got a lot of people that you're going to have to concentrate on stopping if you're E-Town. And the Bears, they're just rolling. They got a new coach. They got a new attitude in there. 41-28 over Lower Dauphin last week. Very impressive victory for them. 3 touchdowns in that game from Logan Lentz, the running back. He had 155 yards. So he's going to be the player that you're going to have to focus on if you're Red Lion. Yeah,
Logan seems to like to tote the rock, definitely. Yeah. A couple other games to watch. Correct me if I'm wrong. Carlisle has Harrisburg this week at Carlisle. So a Friday night game. That should be a good one. The Herd doing very, very well. They lost in a shootout last week to York as York got off the schneid and got their first win of the year. And also Southwestern and Dallastown. Southwestern's looking to go to 4-0. Little hint to the Mustangs, cover Kenny Johnson on the first play of the game. We were at that game last year. Kenny Johnson went deep. Dallastown, not the same team they had last year, but still a pretty potent team right there. So Southwestern has to be on guard. What's your favorite part so far throughout the season?
Well, it's the hardest part for me is picking only 5 games. Now that Berks County's moved into the LL League and that league is expanded to 37 teams, we're looking at an average of 45, 50 games a week. So, if we haven't gotten your school yet in the Frenzy 5, don't worry, we're not overlooking you. It's just hard to narrow it down to 5 games. So it's still pretty wide open. We're, just getting into conference play now, but boy, in another week or 2, we'll be starting to look at District 3 power rankings to figure out where all these teams are going to stack up in the playoffs. So always amazes me every year how quickly the season goes by. You know, you get into early August and you're looking at like training camp and everything and thinking, oh, you know, you look at the schedule and games are being played into December till you get to the state finals, and it feels like it's a long haul. But now here we are, week 4 already, looking at the halfway mark of the season. So it does really go fast. My advice to any players out there, just enjoy it, because, you know, the season gets away from you pretty quick.
It does. It is flying by. I'm having a blast being out there with everyone. I know you're having a blast writing the articles and breaking everything down. Find all of Keith's articles online at fox43.com. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter. I try to get as many out as I can on my Twitter at Callista Andrew. For Keith, I'm Andrew, the entire sports crew. Don't forget the High School Football Frenzy, 6 p.m. Alex Colley is your host as Todd Sadowski and I travel to Auburn for the Penn State Nittany Lions football game on Saturday. Lindsey Barnett, Evan Brooks, Ryan Yee, they have you covered. Hope to see you then. And also the 11 o'clock Frenzy Highlights show on Friday night. Have a good one.